In 2021, my brother's body was found in a cornfield. He was badly decomposed and had been there for a couple of weeks. And he was found by a little girl riding her four wheeler out into the cornfield, and she discovered my brother's body. Um, and I'm being intentional when I begin this podcast episode with that kind of graphic information because I want people to listen, and I know what makes people listen, and I know what catches people's attention. And I would love to continue on this story and have it be a murder mystery or have it be a story of a really beloved, wonderful person that tragedy struck, but that's not the story you're going to hear. The story about my brother's life is one of tragedy, the entire thing. His entire life was tragic. He was 9 years older than me. So by the time that I was born and by the time that I have memories with him, he was in his early teen years, and he was always kind of just a wild card. He dropped out of school at 16. He was shooting, I don't know why my parents got him a BB gun, but he was shooting the neighbors' kids with BB guns, and he wasn't able to at all. I don't think he ever did well in school. It was always a struggle for him. And he just struggled. He struggled. And then when he got into his older teen years, he started using drugs. And I don't think that he stopped using drugs until he died when in 2021 when he was 40. He was a lifelong addict. He was I talked to a number of people before making this episode to kind of gather some information about my brother because I know that my experience is going to be limited because every single person has has many different sides to them. We're all multifaceted individuals. So the experience that I had with him as my brother wasn't necessarily the experience that other people had with him. So so I was able to talk to people, and I did just kind of have brief conversations with a few individuals that knew him in his younger years to kind of understand more. And the picture that I got of my brother was one of a person that was always kind of sick, a person that always wanted to be high, that was always looking for a fix, and that I was always hanging around people that were looking for a fix, and a person that um, because I asked one of his previous, when he was very young, he dated a girl, and now she's an adult. And I talked to her and I said, well, I always got the impression that my brother had friends and that people liked him and that, he was going places, he was hanging out with people. And she said, in her opinion, that her experience of it was that it was people that were just looking to use him, people that were just looking to take advantage of him. And although sad, it resonated and it makes sense because my brother suffered. He suffered his entire life, and he could never really have those connections that he desired to have with others because there was just something within him that wouldn't allow him to develop. My brother was emotionally a child, and he looked like a grown man. On the outside, he didn't look like anybody that had a mental illness. He didn't look crazy. He didn't look anything out of the ordinary. Especially when he was younger, he was attractive. He was a really attractive guy, and he was handsome, and he looked normal. So my parents always expected him to be normal, and they held him to that level of expectation. And when he couldn't achieve the things that they expected of him, my parents were frustrated and my brother was frustrated, and it was this ongoing cycle of my brother never being able to be the person that my parents wanted him to be. My brother was never able to reach their level of expectation for him, and he also was never able to reach that level of expectation for himself. He always had big dreams. We grew up in a small town, and he had big dreams. He wanted to be a DJ. He was actually talented, when he wasn't um, going through a bender and selling his equipment. He was a talented DJ. He was a talented artist. He was a talented skateboarder. But these were all things that my parents didn't really understand, and they didn't really accept the skateboarding and the the graffiti art that he did. It wasn't what they wanted for him. My brother was named after my father, but he has a junior at the end of his name. I'm not going to say their names, but my brother was named after my father, and he was my father's only son. And when he died, when my brother died, I was the one that had to do everything. I I went to the storage unit he was living in and I cleaned it out. I went through the boxes of belongings that he had. Most of it I threw away because it didn't mean anything to me. There were things that he had bought. He had recently, in the year before he died, he had been trying very hard to get on Social Security as he was unable to work. He couldn't work, he could not hold a job. So finally, he was able to collect Social Security or disability, excuse me. And um, he couldn't function with that money. Like, that was his downfall. It was like finally getting this stability that he'd been searching his entire life for, and he got it, and he just couldn't handle it. And he moved into a storage unit. He was extremely paranoid. I'll get more into that in a minute. And he spent his money buying material things that he thought would help him feel better. I cleaned like all these Nike shoes out of his storage unit, and like gold chains, and like, it was like, to me, it was just tragic. So my brother was incredibly paranoid toward the end of his life, and this was a combination of mental health and I believe, this is my opinion, prolonged drug use. And I had seen the paranoia spikes, like at times when he was really when he was using meth. He was incredibly paranoid, but towards the end, I think he was using heroin. He wasn't using meth, but he was still um just so deeply paranoid. So the last person to talk to him in our family was me. I was at my parents' house in early October 2021, and the phone kept ringing over and over and over. And this was something that my brother would do, where my mother would just be at the end of her rope, not able to talk to him anymore, and he would keep calling over and over and over until somebody answered. And eventually they would put the phone off the hook. So he kept calling, and I picked up, and I talked to him for a couple minutes. And he was really far gone at that point. He was not able to have a conversation with me. What he was talking about was he was trying to desperately get me to believe in his delusions, in his paranoia. And he was saying, Sarah, the government is spying on me. They're after me. They're sending, like, he had, like, in his mind, it was so true. And it excuse me, I'm recovering from bronchitis. In his mind, it was true. In his mind, he believed in this stuff. And again, like, I wasn't discrediting him. I wasn't saying, Philip, you're crazy. I was just saying, Philip, and he was saying, Sarah, please tell me you believe me. Please tell me you believe me, please. And I just said, Philip, I can't. Like I don't know. Like I'm not saying I don't believe you, but I'm just saying that like that's not my reality. But I love you. I kept telling him I loved him. And he told me, he's like, I'm going to go kill myself. And I said, I love you, Philip. Please don't do that. There's people here that love you. I'll help you in any way that I can. You know I will. I love you. Please, Philip. And he said, I'm going to go kill myself unless you tell me you believe me. And I said, it's not that I don't believe you, Philip. I just think that you need help. And I want to help you. And he said, I'm going to go kill myself. And he hung up. And again, this wasn't an out of the ordinary occurrence. He threatened to kill himself all the time. He would disappear for weeks at a time, all the time, months at a time, even. So it was just a normal day for me, honestly. It was just a normal day. And I did everything I could, and I was the last person to talk to him, and then his body was found. Um, that was the beginning of October, and around the 22nd, I think his body was found in the cornfield. So this is it. That's my brother's life. And I'll also add in other things. My brother could never keep a job. My brother could never keep a girlfriend. Why? Because he was physically abusive. I heard horror stories from people that knew him. Not horror stories, but like I remember when I was in high school one time. No, I'm not gonna tell that story, actually. I'm sorry. I just don't think that it will serve anything. But it was just stories of my brother doing drugs, and like people knew him, and it was just my brother was a person that would do shitty things and do things that would hurt other people and that did hurt other people, and he didn't care. And he was so deeply lost in his own mental illness and his own addiction that he was never able to make anything of himself or be anything in his life other than tragic, other than just consumed by addiction, always running from his pain. Okay, so now what's the point of me saying all this, right? Like, okay, my brother's life was a tragedy. So why am I here talking about him? And that's what I said when my guides told me to do this episode. I said, but why? What's there to say? And over time, I've been working on this mentally and emotionally for a couple weeks now, maybe even a couple months. I came to understand that my guides invited me to talk about my brother because he's the perfect example of forgiveness. Excuse me. He's the perfect example of forgiveness that I can give in my life because I never judged my brother. I never judged him. I never and I want to share this right now actually. This is a picture. I'm the littlest that's just dressed like James Dean. Those are my grandparents, my sister, my middle sister in the pink, and my oldest sister who's 12 years older than me in the tallest one. My brother wasn't in that picture. But so that's me and my two sisters. And we all took a very different path in how we um, experienced my brother growing up. My oldest sister was the one that was closest in age to him. They were 2 or 3 years apart. And for her, she spent a lifetime just grieving, just constantly trying to help him, constantly trying to help him, trying to release herself from the burden of wanting to help him, and then just grieving over the choices that he made and grieving over the way that he hurt my parents, over the way that he just all the things in his life. She would feel constant grief over that. My middle sister, she rejected him completely. I don't think that she spoke to him from probably around the time that he moved out of the house, maybe in 2002 or 3. She didn't speak to him after that, and she didn't. That's it. She never spoke to him again. She rejected him completely. She she never they never got along. And then there was me, the youngest, and I was I was his friend. When I was younger, there was definitely times when we would get in fights, and it was kind of like getting in a fight with somebody my age, but a lot bigger. Like emotionally, he was my age, but he would and could beat me up. So we would get in arguments, like, and I say this with like complete forgiveness. My sisters would beat me up too. Sorry, not my sisters, just one of them. Um, so I forgive all my siblings, but my brother was emotionally closer to me around like his emotional processing when we were children, when I was a child and he was a teen. And then when he got older, I moved past him, and I was able to see things from a much different perspective, and I just forgave him and I just loved him. And whenever I saw him, I would just help him in any way I could. I'd buy him groceries, give him rides places. I remember one time that I was just driving down the road in my hometown, and there's my brother standing on the side of the road. So I stopped my car, and he came over and went to get in. He's like, "Oh, I thought you were my ride." I was like, "Yeah, no, I just saw you and I was just saying hi." And it was just like, sometimes he would show up at my house. I can't find it now, but the last time I saw him, he just showed up at my house. He was just walking down the road. I live in the middle of nowhere in the woods, and he just showed up, and I gave him some pizza, and he sat outside eating it. And it was around the time, it was a couple months before he died, and it was around the time that my daughter was 3, and it was so funny. She just sat there. He was sitting in my yard eating pizza, just playing on his phone. And my daughter went up and just sat in front of him and just stared at him. And I took a picture of it, and I've never found that picture. I have not found that picture. I pray that if that picture exists, that it will turn up somewhere. So I never judged my brother. I just never had it in my heart to judge him. And I always came at it. I just, even as a young child, like I can't explain it. And I'm not trying to say that like I'm holier than thou, but I just never had it in my heart to really say, like, to judge him and to be mad at him. I was like, that's his life. He's making his own decisions. He's doing his own things, and that has nothing to do with me. And I'm not going to make it my problem. I'm not going to make it my grief. I'm not going to let my life be ruined because of that. So I definitely had like an emotional detachment to him. I loved him. I cared for him. I was there for him, but I wasn't going to like become the emotional mess when he sat there on the phone with me telling me he was going to kill himself. Something I'd heard so many times. I don't even know if I could have done it any differently. Like, if when I look back at it, like if I could have, like, I don't know. I'm just grateful. I'm grateful that I told him all the times that I did how much I loved him in that phone call. I'm grateful. But the last person he talked to on earth, hopefully, if it was me, that I filled him with as much love as he could contain, which I don't think was a lot. One more thing is, I knew my brother was going to die. I had actually told my mom somewhere in the year before he died. I remember I was on a walk with my mother, and I said, "Listen, Mom, like I don't know why, I don't know how I know this, but I know that Philip's going to die. Um, I know that I can just feel a pulling away of his energy. He doesn't have a lot left to live for. He doesn't, and it's not that he didn't have anything left to live for. It's that he himself had his all of his hope was gone. Like his hope was gone. Everything. It was just like he had been working so hard to get that money, and he got that money, and it's just like, okay, now what? Like, you're living in your storage unit and you're paranoid, and like, where's the hope? So I knew he was going to die, and I had warned my mother, and I think that that also helped her come to terms with it, that she had that come into her awareness before it happened. So the reason that I talk about this, and the reason that this is going to be a really long episode, but the reason that I am bringing this up today is because of something that happened after my brother died. After my brother died, a year after, my father refused to have a funeral for him. We did a family memorial service, and we invited his ex-wife. My brother had been married and with this woman for a couple years and married very briefly, and she was she was from Indonesia, and she had flown all the way over to the US to be with him. So I don't think it was easy for her to leave him. And when she found out that she was pregnant, she left him. That was when she left, and she went and decided to do her own thing. Um, and she never came back. So she had that son. She had a son. My brother never met him. They lived in California. We live on the East Coast. So we invited her to come, and the son to come for his memorial service. And it was a very shocking experience for my family when that his ex-wife and his son came. The reason that it was so shocking, for me especially, was because there was an incident where the son, I think, I don't know how old he was, maybe 14, he tried to attack my daughter, my 4-year-old daughter at the time. It was a really scary incident. And when he did that, when the son tried to attack my daughter, it was like something that was totally unprovoked. But I in that experience, I saw the exact behaviors of my brother. And let me say again, this 14-year-old had never met his dad. He had never even been in the same state, same town, same area as his dad. He didn't even know anything about his dad. His mother had told him nothing. And there he was. Not only did he look like my brother, looks just like my brother, he looks like his mother, Asian, but he looked like had the same features as my brother, and he was exhibiting these same things that my brother had exhibited. He was the paranoia, the the aggression, and it was so startling for my family. Me, my older sister, and my mother all witnessed it. Wait, no, excuse me, it was just me and my older sister that witnessed it. And we were shocked because it was like deja vu of what I had grown up with. That was when I realized, holy shit, my brother had something genetic. It wasn't just him being a bad person. It wasn't just him trying to fit in and never being able to. He was sick. He came in sick, and all of a sudden it was everything made sense. And my excuse me, bronchitis. Okay. And so my brother came in sick. He came in sick. This made sense. And why did it make sense? Okay, there's another thing that helps it make sense, which is my mother was adopted. There is an entire side of my genetic history that's unknown, an entire side of family that we don't know. I have searched for her adoptive family. I've come close. I actually know like the name of who it might be, but I think that at some point, if I were to really try, I could find them, but it's just like, it's kind of scary. Like, what if they don't want to be found, right? So we have this entire genetic side of my mom's side that's unknown. And then there's my brother and his son that are acting in the exact same way. Obviously, this is something genetic. Obviously, this is something like bigger than just my brother being a troublemaker, being a punk. Like it's bigger than what anybody had realized. I thought that this would give my parents peace. I thought that they would understand, but it just made things more painful for them to see that, oh, not only did my brother suffer his entire life, but now his son is out there suffering. And my parents, they have nothing to do with the son. um, I think that they financially might help them every year. Maybe there's a Christmas present or two, but other than that, they can't. I don't think that. I think it's too heavy in their hearts to be able to interact with him. So so to sum this all up, this deep understanding of why my guides wanted me to say this, what's the point in me having this video? Well, the point is to say that we don't know what a person is going through. And so many of our choices are I don't want to say predetermined, because we all have free will, but sometimes free will doesn't work in the way that one might think. And our choices are strongly governed by our genetics. And people that come in with different genetic makeup have a hard time choosing differently. And I even want to say, I'm not gonna say that. Okay. But this is a call for compassion, to really look and see the world in a way of, instead of saying they're a burden on society, they're a waste on society, they it will be better when they die. We have to really start to look at people at an individual level and say, what are they capable of? And when we group everybody together, it's just like the school system. When everybody's grouped together and expected to achieve at the same level and in the same way, it's just, there's going to be failures. We have to start to look at people as individuals on their own individual journey, and everybody is capable of different things, and everybody has different needs, and nobody is a waste of space. Nobody is nothing. Everybody matters. Every single person matters. Even the worst people in the world, they matter. And to really help a person start to heal, we don't do that. We don't help people heal by judging them. We don't help people heal by pointing fingers or saying they're bad or recounting all of the things that they've done. We help people heal by gently inviting them to be loved, to feel our love, by forgiving others, by sitting down and listening and talking. I want to end this with one story um, that I don't want to start crying, that touched me the most. And this came months after my brother died. I posted something on Facebook, a picture, and talking about my brother, and my neighbor reached out to me and she said, I didn't know that was your brother. And she told me that she was a nurse. She didn't tell me what she was a nurse for. She didn't tell me any personal information, but I know that she's a nurse, and I deducted that she probably was the nurse that he had to go and see to get his Suboxone. Again, she didn't say any of this, and I don't know. But so she said that she was a nurse and that she would meet with him, and she said that he was always polite and he was always kind, and that she enjoyed and that she enjoyed seeing him every week. She was one of the only people that ever said anything to me that was nice about him. And I loved that story. I told my parents, I was like, this is something that I like hearing, because even though, I'm sure that if she had known him at a more personal level, she wouldn't feel that way. But she is a person that interacted with him often, in that she said that she liked him, and that she was sad when she found out that he had died, and that she had missed seeing him, and then she saw in the newspaper that he had died. So I'm just going to end this as this. And this is my call for everyone to just open your hearts, open your minds. Remember that we're all human, and we're all just doing the best we can with what was given to us, and we were all given differently. Yeah, my brother and I had the same opportunities, but like on paper, materially, but we did not have the same opportunities genetically. Okay? Sending so much love out there. I just want this to fill people's hearts with love, and have this be a real um, homage. I can't think of the right word, but just for my brother, just to say, this is it. Like, my brother never had a funeral. He had a memorial service, but that's it. And every year when his death comes through, his family feels grief when they remember him. And that I don't want it to be that way anymore. Like, I don't feel grief, but I know my family does, and I don't want to grieve. I want to remember him in love and in light, and I also want to acknowledge that he's here with me right now. I feel him. All right. Thank you.